Hey there, hunters. Welcome back to the Gunners Guild. So today, I actually have a build showcase brought to you by Fighting Cowboy, actually. This was his idea, and I kind of pieced it together, so thank him. Anyway, today we have what I like to call the Stormy Knight build. It's a melee build revolving around sandstorms and thunderstorms. Now, the goal of this build originally was just to make a sandstorm build that felt pretty good to use. But that quickly evolved into this beast here that can tackle pretty much the entire content of the game on Apocalypse. It can sort of face tank bosses, like you gotta be kind of careful with what attacks you face tank, and you do still have to dodge occasionally, because there are just some really obscenely hard-hitting attacks. But that being said, yeah, it kind of freaking slaps pretty hard, and harder than I thought it would. I can't get DPS numbers on this due to how target dummies are and stuff, but this thing kills a lot faster than like my hugs and shotgun swapper setup, but those also rely heavily on weak spots, but this doesn't. So I'd imagine it's around 4k DPS though, which is pretty flippin' solid, especially because the uptime is 100%. Anyway, you've seen it in action here. Let's just get down to explaining the build. Okay, so here's the equipment. I'm going to talk to you about each piece, but here's the equipment, and then I'll kind of fade this back out to gameplay. So we're going to start with the weapons, because obviously this is entirely designed around Sandstorms, which comes from the Monolith and the Mirage, two new weapons introduced in DLC 2 here. Monolith we're using solely for Sandstorm, which does also apply Exposed to enemies, so it gives us 15% more damage on them. Now we put on the Spellweaver mutator because using Sandstorm with Spellweaver will let us regen cooldowns on our skills and help us sustain both of our archetype skills, which I'll get to in just a second. Mirage, of course, is our other Sandstorm weapon. Now, unfortunately, Mirage's Sandstorm is not tagged properly and does not have the melee tag right now, meaning it does not scale with melee damage, nor does it benefit from melee mutators. This is a bug and will be fixed in the hotfix either this week or next week, sometime soon I'm sure. So once that goes in, this build is actually going to be much better than it already is, and that's scary. So I put the Chakra mutator in here, in principle because we can't scale melee damage, and Mirage should be able to hit multiple enemies at a time with its Cyclone and proc Chakra all over the place. That isn't the case right now, and only actually procs on the melee swing, not all the Cyclone hits, but it will be, and it'll be better. Anyway, then for our handgun, we're actually going to be using good old Nebula for Corrosion's added damage, so that's going to go well with Exposed. It's a lot of free added damage for everything. And Nanoswarm is just like the best mod in the game. Feedback is on here so it can help us generate more mod power to sustain both of our mods. Granted, our melee is going to do a lot of that too. Now, since we wanted to do storms, I figured the best thing to use is the Invoker with Way of Kulua, which just makes it rain and do like thunderstorms. So it's like, great, it's Stormy. And then when you pair it with Shocker on the melee, it actually just works really well thematically. And as it turns out, Invoker, which is just an insanely good archetype on its own, is really good at skill sustain. And that's going to work out in our favor, because I went with Ritualist for our secondary archetype because of Death Wish, which is just a fat chunk of damage, and it gives Leech, which is really important since this is a face tank build. And we can cool it down while it's active, which pairs well with Spellweaver and Invoker in general. So basically, we can keep up both Death Wish and Way of Kulua all the time. And that's a huge one, it's a lot of damage. So I'm actually really surprised that the archetypes worked out so well for this. You wouldn't expect to put Invoker and Ritualist on a melee build, but it works. Next is the trinkets. I'm using Indignant Fetish because really it's just a good neck now. It's 20% all damage and 10% damage reduction, which is very nice because we're going to be taking damage a lot. And then that's also going to force us to use the Atonement Fold, so we have self-inflicting damage to sustain Indignant Fetish. Now I'm also using the Bisected Ring, which is counteracting the damage reduction because it gives us 15% more damage taken, which sucks. But it's given us infinite stamina, and we need infinite stamina to sustain Mirage's Cyclones. So that's a trade that we have to kind of make up for. Now the last two rings I'm using just for damage. Burden of the Gambler and Token of Favor is 20% crit chance, 15% crit damage, and 5% all damage, which of course is everything's applying to everything. You can go bulkier if you want with this build and just run something defensive or more life or melee damage, whatever. You can do something else if you want. I don't think it's all that necessary. I wanted damage. And then finally, we have the Relic. We're going to be using Profane Heart here for more Leech, which is being added to Death Wish as well. And for the Relic Fragments, we're going to be using Elemental damage because most of our damage is pretty much Elemental. In fact, I think all of it is. We're using the Damage Reduction Fragment for more bulk since we also have to finish counteracting our Bisected Ring. And we're also using the Modded Skill Cast Speed Fragment because we use mods and skills a lot and we want to make that faster. We don't want to get animation locked. For our traits, Flashcaster because, like I said, we need to be faster. Swiftness because we need to be faster. and Amplitude to have larger AoEs with all of our stuff. These are kind of like our default things that we have to have. The rest, pretty much bulk. We're running Vigor for life, Fortify for more armor, Siphoner for leech, so we're, again, a lot of leech. But you do have some extra points to play with. I grabbed Expertise and Chakra for moderation and skill cooldowns, but again, you can go more bulky if you want to. Because like right now, we're using as much armor to stay in heavyweight because we still want to roll occasionally. But if you put more points into like Strong Back and Bark Skin, and you can just go full Letos and be even tankier. And then basically when you put this whole random beast mishmash together, you can conjure up a storm that's just going to demolish pretty much everything in its path. You have amazing AoE coverage, you have great zone clear with Sandstorm and Way of Kyula, you have amazing bulk for bosses, and you have enough damage to just kind of run through everything. Now, I wouldn't recommend this for air bosses, of course, like Shahalo and Lydusa, but otherwise, I don't think there's anything this thing can't steamroll. I mean, I was face tanking bosses hits left and right. Again, not every single one, you do have to dodge every now and then, but you get just, leech back what you got hit with instantly. So, yeah, that's just kind of the build. This was super fun to put together and use, so thanks Cowboy for the idea, and I hope you have fun with it. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. If you made it to the end, I appreciate it. If anyone wants to talk shop about gaming or whatever, feel free to join my Discord in the description below. But yeah, peace and thanks.